Hello and welcome to the Classical Next podcast, the global platform for the ideas and the people redefining classical and art music worldwide. I'm your host, David Taylor. This episode is a little bit different. As you can probably tell from my slightly husky voice, last week was the Classical Next conference in Budapest. This gave us the chance to do something a little bit special with a live show. Instead of the regular deep dive, we wanted to hear from people about the hot topics, ideas, and statements from this year's conference. So, we made this episode into more of a show, with 4 amazing guests and live voting from the Classical Next audience. I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who came to the live show. It made it such good fun, and also a huge thank you to everyone who attended the conference. I honestly had such a good week. If you didn't manage to make it this year, hopefully this episode gives you a little glimpse as to what it is like, and I really hope you enjoy. Right, that's enough from me. Let's jump in. So what did we want to do today? Number 1, it's the last thing on a Friday, so we want to give a little bit of energy to the session as well, so we're going to be detracting from the regular format. We wanted to touch on some of the hot topics and ideas at the conference and hear the thoughts of you, the audience, and the people who make this event special. The world we live in is complex, and the answers to the challenges we face aren't going to be solved or aren't going to be the same for everyone at the same time. So it's important we have these conversations with nuance and variety. However, if we've learned anything from the digital age, it's that nuance doesn't make for great entertainment. So for the purposes of today, we are throwing nuance out of the window and we are moving to the binary world of yes or no, you lucky people. We're going to be taking a hot topic, idea or statement that we've heard during the week and hearing the thoughts of our panelists, who are the ones who are allowed to be nuanced, lucky people, and I'll be giving them no more than 2 minutes to speak and share their thoughts. And to make sure, because it's the end of the conference, we want to be snappy, that no one goes over time, we're going to have a large countdown clock on screen as well, so no pressure. Speaking of, you'll have noticed that I haven't actually announced our fantastic panel today. And that's because I thought it would be good practice to do a dry run of speaking to time. So I'm going to be giving everyone 30 seconds to say who they are, what they do, and what they are fascinated by. Jamie, I think you've drawn the short straw for this one, so if you'd like to get ready to go first, we have 30 seconds on the clock.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jamie Njoku-Goodwin. I run my own advisory company. My background is in politics and music world. I was chief executive of UK Music, and I was a special advisor at the Culture Department and Health Department, and then at number 10 Downing Street. So my sort of pitch is I'm the culture person and the politics person, and I work with organisations across the UK, and I'm fascinated by all the amazing ideas that have just been shared and set out in the last few days here.
Ooh. Spot on! Amazing effort. Right. Raring to go?
Yeah. Good afternoon. My name is Susanne Szambelan. I'm a cellist from Poland, but I'm based in Berlin. And I came here to Classical Next to showcase my project, Kodai Reframed, which I performed with Hayden Chisholm on saxophone and Max Bailey on violin. And what we do is we expand Kodai's music with improvisation. So I'm classically trained cellist, but I look for new ways to present classical music and go to improvisation as well.
Woo! Very well done. Ready to go?
Ready? Hi everyone, I'm Nathaly Ossa. I'm from Colombia, but I have lived and worked in Australia, Norway, and I'm currently based in Madrid, in Spain. And I help organizations to measure their impact and to expand or create their outreach, educational, community programs. So everything around social impact through arts. That's 7 seconds left.
Perfect. So, Chris, just FYI, we're 3 for 3.
Is it a race for who can be the quickest?
It can be.
All right. Hi, Lloyd. I do weird concerts in weird spaces. Sometimes I write about classical music, not for a while. I got a bit bored. And that's about it, really. Is there anything I've missed?
Woo! So, we started Classical Next off with what we can say from Ivan Fischer as an exceptionally provocative and exciting opening. So I thought, where better to start with his opening inspirational quote. The classical music industry is dying. Ivan was talking about how, and I quote, we are all dinosaurs that will soon go extinct. He argued that the infrastructure for our industry is unsustainable, and that in 30 years or so, we will be no more. So starting with Jamie, I'd love to hear your thoughts in 2 minutes. The classical music industry is dying.
Bits of the classical music industry are dying. Audiences are going down in some places. There's a little bit of lack of energy in others. People aren't donating in areas as much as, and public funding is sort of strained in many areas. So there are lots of bits of the classical music industry that will be dying. But there's also lots of bits of the industry that are very alive, that are very vibrant, that are incredibly buzzy. It's been amazing just in the last couple of days hearing showcases, hearing project pitches, hearing sort of new ideas for ways that the industry can not just survive, but really thrive. I always worry that I think the classical music sector has got a real scarcity mindset and a real survival mindset. And it always just thinks about, how do we survive? How do we get through the day? How do we make sure we're here in 5 years or 10 years? Whereas actually, there's been something really exciting speaking to lots of people here, hearing lots of ideas for not just how we survive and get through the next 5 years, but how in 5, 10, 15 years does the model look different? How we engage in audiences much more differently, much more vibrantly. Hearing about sort of the idea of sort of watching opera through VR. It's amazing. I love it. And the idea that actually how we consume opera is going to be completely different in 10, 20, 30 years' time gives me a lot of hope for the future. I find very energizing. But the reality is, in all sorts of sectors, not just music, of course culture, of course business, of course everywhere, you always have bits of a sector that will die. But then you also have bits of a sector where good ideas thrive. And the real challenge for the cultural sector, I think, is being able to identify where are the ideas that are working, having those ideas, but not just having those ideas, but spreading those ideas and making sure that when you're seeing how a orchestra is revolutionizing how you do concerts, other orchestras are saying, that's great, we should take that, we should adapt that, we should evolve that. So I think the bad bits of the classical music industry will be dying. That's a good thing. But the good bits and the exciting bits, I think, are very much alive for the future.
Very well put, with 1 second to go as well. Good on time. Thank you so much for your thoughts. Susanne, would love to hear yours with 2 minutes.
Yeah, so I was actually thinking these days, what is classical music? And I think we kind of have to rename it and define it, or maybe we don't need to define it at all. Like, it's such a broad range what classical music can be. So the statement that classical music is dying, for me, is personally not true, because classical music has been reshaped. And when we think, like back in the days, classical music was always relevant to the present times. So when I was listening to Liszt in the opening concert, I was thinking like, wow, that was so, it was such a rock star, you know? Liszt was such a rock star. Like, even nowadays, we heard it and we felt this energy and this virtuosic passages. It was so exciting for the audience back then to hear it. So I think nowadays we need to create music that is relevant to our times, that young people can connect with. And in my eyes, this is what classical music is nowadays. So I have 1 minute more to go, but I think I'm good.
Very well put, and I love the idea of music in response to times and being relevant, which is really, really exciting. Nathaly, I'll let you take the mic then.
Yeah, I think we all agree so far. I think it's not the music itself or the industry, but maybe a model that is dying or shifting or transitioning to something else. Maybe we won't only perform in concert halls, which is happening now. Maybe we won't depend only on subscribers or the seasons, or maybe classical music is not going to put the main energy in creating the elite and the excellence alone. Maybe we will find other roles in society and with the citizens. So I think it's more about a different approach, a different vision, but it's not the entire sector that is dying. Also, not dominated only by white Western men in the composition, direction, and leadership. So all those things are going to create, apart from the things you said, a different future for classical music, I'm sure.
Wonderful. On to Chris.
It reminded me, I love that provocation at the beginning, and it reminded me of this quote from someone in the theatre industry that said the longest tradition in the theatre industry is that it's been dying for 400 years. And so there's a sort of resilience within classical music that kind of makes it impossible to kill. I feel oddly optimistic though these days. I think that's to do with the fact that the world is getting a little bit shit, and specifically with regards to audience or general population attention spans and whatnot. I feel like we've auctioned off our dopamine and happiness levels to what now appears to be fairly evil tech companies. And as a result, we're all a little bit wired unhealthily. And one thing I've noticed is that the value of live concerts have not gone down. In a world that's getting more digitalized and more artificial, that people are going to start coming back. One of my other roles is teaching piano, and I have a heap more adult students than I've ever had previously because adults are coming back to something tactile and wanting to do something and to experience something, and we're just going to see this blossom, I think. So I'm optimistic. I think we're sitting on a product that is phenomenal, that we're all really good at, and that is about to have a late summer bloom in terms of relevance to people and the value it's bringing. So yeah, I'm feeling good.
Good news, good news. I also really like you talking about shortened attention spans while having a large clock behind you telling us when you're going to stop talking, which is very appreciated. So with that in mind, we are now going to you, the in-person audience. You don't get the luxury of nuance. You have to answer yes or no as to whether the classical music industry is dying. So time to get your phones out onto Mentimeter and get your votes in. Also, as a point for later, there is the option to do questions on Mentimeter because we're a podcast and recording the audio. We won't be taking them from mics, so you have to submit there as well. So this is great. It's like Eurovision. The votes come in real time. So we could do with some of that glamour. That'd be fun. So we're currently on 73% no, 27% yes as we're chasing it round. But it seems like a positive that, one, this podcast may get another season. Classical music will still be here and we can renew. That'd be exciting. Good news. So I think that looks like all the votes. 74% no, classical music, the classical music industry is not dying. Very good news. And exciting for all of us with jobs. Moving on, time for the next topic. Audiences are not interested in works that they do not know. We hear this, I think, sometimes quite a lot from people that we can do new works or we can showcase works from underrepresented composers, but we have to pair it with Beethoven 5 to get bums on seats because they'll only come for the things that they love. But equally at the same time, we also hear the opposite, that actually audiences are wanting to experience things they've not heard a million times before. They're looking for things that are new. So which is it? Is it that audiences want something new or is it that audiences are not interested in things that they don't know? Chris, starting with you.
Oh, hell. Normally I had 4 other people to think about my answer first.
Yeah.
We've had a modicum of success in Berlin with event series that sort of recontextualizes the concert format. And one of my colleagues actually explained why that was. And it's because we don't tell people it's classical music. So people buy tickets to this thing thinking it's music and then get sort of hit with the classical aspect. And they typically don't get too pissed off. And so that seems to be, I think when we actually started that in 2019, doing shows where we didn't advertise the repertoire at all. And I think that helps because at the moment you do advertise repertoire, you sort of, that's the reason people are choosing whether to come or not. Now that's easy for a small independent group in Berlin rather than, the Berliner Philharmoniker wanted to change their marketing to not do that. So it's a tricky topic. audiences being open-minded. I mean, with these shows, we've had success in the sense that like a contemporary French horn piece with electronics was the highest rated when we sent audience data afterwards. And so recontextualizing it allowed someone to like music that is objectively terrible. Sorry, French horn players. What was the question, Dave? Audiences don't like...
Audiences are not interested in music that they do not know.
Yes, but until then, let's just make them know it. I suppose is the easy answer. I think there's unfortunately true, and I have zero answers outside of that. So
That's perfect, but I do look forward to your session next year on catfishing and programming. Definitely something new. So, Nathaly, on to you.
I think there is a tendency and feel comfortable about the things you know in everything, not just in music. Like you study the subject, so you want to talk about it, you want to intervene in a conversation when you know what people is talking about. And it's the same when you go to a concert and you recognize a piece, you feel educated. I understand this is Beethoven, I know this piece. And that's very normal for all the audiences, but also it is very interesting to be surprised. And this morning in the programming session, we talk about the role of the artistic programmer. Maybe it's part of the role to shake people, to offer new things, to put them in front of unexpected situations. And maybe it won't happen in 1 second. Maybe we will need some preparation. Maybe we have some conversations before this new piece come into place, or we combine it with other types of arts, or we put it in a different type of stage. So I think it's more about how we frame it, how we give it to people, not just throw it in the first part, the over 12, every concert is going to be contemporary music now, just because. But if we do it in a meaningful way, if we attach a narrative and a full concept behind these decisions, I think it might work. So it's not about the music only, it's how we present it and how we help people to feel comfortable in the uncomfortable situation of not knowing the pieces.
I love that. Really, really exciting. Thank you. Susanne.
Yeah, I love also your answer. It's really hard to add anything. And I agree with you that it's like human nature that we like to feel safe and we like to feel familiar with things we heard already before or feel educated. But I try to now, I just thought about it. If I go to the cinema and buy a ticket for a movie, then I would like to know what kind of movie I'm going to watch. So I can imagine probably I wouldn't go to the cinema every weekend if I didn't know what kind of movie I will see. So I also can understand that people would like to have a hint or at least one piece that they heard before, and they would like to hear it again. And I think it's the key to make a very mindful program that makes sense and it can introduce the new music, because people also like to feel like kids that experience something new, and this is what new music can provide to us. So I think both is important to keep the balance.
Fantastic, thank you. Jamie.
I had a funny experience a couple of weeks ago where I'm on the board of the London Philharmonic and we did Sibelius' Second Symphony. And it was fantastic, but I invited a friend along. And she said, no, I saw that a few years ago. I've already seen that one. So actually, rather than us assuming and thinking, no, people only want to come along to the things they know, for lots of people, they want things that are new. They want things that are fresh. And they want things that are different. But even as we talk about this, we always talk about the audience. Who's the spokesperson for the audience? Who speaks for the audience? Almost as if there's this single, unitary, fixed view of the audience wants this or the audience wants that. The audiences want different things. Different people want different things. People come to concerts for all sorts of various reasons. One of the challenges in the UK actually is, and we're getting better at this, but understanding our audiences is so important and is so critical. They do it really well in America in terms of like data-led approaches to understand what sells well, but not just within concerts, but sort of within programs, how people responded afterwards, what drives donations, what drives people coming back the second time, third time, fourth time. I've always been fascinated by the people getting very excited about talking about first-time audience members. And I've always said I don't actually care about people that come to a concert for the first time. I care about people that come back. You can get as many people to come to a concert, but actually, if none of them are going to be coming back a second time, what's the point of it? So I think working as organisations and working across the sector to have a really clear view about what your audiences want, what they need, but also we shouldn't be too led by it. Organisations, we all have our own artistic identities, and it's important to follow customers and consumers, but also you're an orchestra. You believe in the art and you put the art forward and you put the art and you hope that people will follow that and will support you in however you do it.
Really good points, especially about second-time audiences as well, which is something we often neglect. Lots of really good thoughts, lots of variation as well, but you, the poor audience, have to be binary again. So back onto voting. Audiences are not interested in works that they do not know. What do you think? Yes or no? I think we also need prizes for fastest finger first with this as well. Good news for those who are listening on the podcast, because I realize this is great for what is primarily an audio-only format. We are showing 88% no at the moment and 12% yes, 17% yes. I will avoid the running commentary, but seems to be overwhelming around no, which is exciting. And again, do get your questions in the live person audience on the app as well, or in Mentimeter. It'd be great to hear your questions further on. Although yes is now having a comeback. We're now about 23% yes, 77% no. Jamie, you have had a career in politics. Is this what election night is, with a swingometer and results coming in live?
Well, I say you can say early votes sometimes sort of set the agenda, but actually there's still a lot of votes to come. We're not quite sure. People often vote undecideds, often vote late. So I don't know, maybe there'll be some more. But it looks pretty definitive for the no right now, David.
Thank you so much. We're now going over to. We need to get you on election night now. Wonderful. Thank you so much for your input. We are now moving on. And just to warn you, Jamie, you'll be first for the next question.
What's first?
I know, it's terrible. Music education is vital to audience development. This is something we've heard a lot within the industry, and we heard in Ivan Fischer's opening as well, that in order to get new audiences, it's vital to do music in schools and to educate our audience. But also this week, we've heard some alternative opinions as well. Classical music education is funded way more than other forms of music education. For example, electronic dance music, dubstep, grime, and hip-hop, they've all thrived over the years despite not having any formalized music education. If music education was tied to consumption, surely those genres would be struggling to find an audience. Millions of people across the world enjoy those different genres, and also including classical music, without necessarily having education in them. But also, does this narrative also suggest that you need an education to enjoy an art form? Most people have no education about the world of cinema, yet millions across the world enjoy films every week. Art galleries are full of people who are coming back to paintings and sculptures with no knowledge or training. For example, the Louvre has now put a cap on the amount of people who can attend each day. It's that oversubscribed. And in sports, you don't need to know the rules or the complexities of how to get past a low block in football or how gegenpressing was doing. I Googled all this earlier, I had no idea. In order to understand the game. So, is music education actually the answer to getting new audiences, or is it something else? Over to you.
Okay, emphatically no. And I think people that think this are lazy, misguided, and is essentially pushing this onto someone else's problem. In the UK, 78% of people have never been to a classical music concert. They say they've never been. That number for an art gallery is about sort of 43, 44%. We don't have a huge we don't have sort of a nation of artists who sort of know the difference between all sorts of sort of art history and know all this sort of stuff. But galleries have worked out how to get audiences in, even if they don't know or are new to the subject matter. In politics, to go back to the politics chat, there's a real trend among political parties who've lost an election to blame it on the voters. And say, we lost, our ideas were great, but the electorate was stupid, or they didn't really understand that. And it's always the mark of someone who doesn't have a good product, but is trying to blame someone else. There are so many instances of being able to get people into concerts, to enjoy the art, and to enjoy what you do, and to value what you do, without them knowing anything about it. Now, would it help if we had a a nation of completely musically literate music lovers, would more people come to concerts? Of course they would. But if our strategy for getting more people to enjoy classical music is ensuring that everyone is, over the next 10, 15 years, can has complete mastery of an instrument, can conduct every Brahms symphony from memory, and can speak for 2 minutes on any subject in classical music, I just don't think that's a sustainable strategy. If people aren't buying your product, don't blame the consumers. Look at yourself in the mirror and ask, how are we selling this? Why are people not wanting what we're offering? And I sort of just think, look, I love music education. I'm very pro music education. I think music education is critically important for a number of different reasons. But just viewing more music education as the way you get more people to come to your concerts, I think is lazy and absolving people of the responsibilities we've got as a sector.
Good points. Really, really interesting. Thank you so much. Susanne, would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think music education anyway is vital for every human being. And I also work with kids, so from my point of view, introducing music and teaching them to play instrument is very, very important. And coming back to what you said, like feeling familiar with music and to know a little bit about it, I think is very important. So that would be my take on it.
Certainly, there's so much still power at that early points of discovery, which I think is really, really exciting. Nathaly, we'd love to hear your thoughts as well.
More than music education, I think there is a big power in the practice of music, in the active playing of music collectively, like in a choir or a symphony orchestra, or in a football team, or on a dance group, or anything that you build outcome outside your own performance, but you need to perform collectively. And there is a lot of research these days about the benefits for the individual and society of performing together. And music education, of course, it has, for the last 100 years, there is research about the cognitive development, the emotional approach for kids, and how they engage better with the other colleagues, but also the social side. And this is very important, how music education is helping underserved communities to be part, to be included, to participate, making beauty in a different way that it was seen before. So I think the power of music education is not just about the music, but all the things that can create for the people and the citizens. And I think it's a right every citizen deserves, especially children and young people. It's a super powerful tool that we need to learn how to use, because it also involves the soul, the spirit, and the pursuit of beauty. But thinking that's the way we're gonna get more audiences is so instrumentalistic. And I think it's a bit even evil to think we're gonna teach music and educate people just because we want to sell tickets. That happens as an unexpected outcome, and it will happen, that's great, but we shouldn't focus music education to get more audiences.
Really interesting points. And it reminds me a little of what Deborah Border was saying about citizen musicians, that we need those citizen musicians in order to be able to go and do those sorts of work and connect with those sorts of communities, people, individuals, regardless where they are. Chris, you're on the clock.
I've attended a lot of the different conference sessions this week, and the education access question has been at the front of mind a lot. I come at it from, I've lived in 3 different countries. So I was born in Australia, raised in Australia, lived in London, studied masters there, and then moved to Germany. And there are 3 really good examples of different approaches to music education, I think. In that Australia doesn't really have it. So if you want to be a musician, you also have to be sort of bourgeois middle class. So it's really it's limited to that. And the rest of the culture kind of doesn't care about classical music. Whereas in London, all I'd ever hear was about how music education in the 70s, 80s was free, and that's why it was great then, and now it's terrible. But Brits just like to complain, so it sort of filters through. And then in Germany, on the other hand, it's the easiest job in the world to be a classical musician because everyone values you already. Now, I'm not sure if that's to do with education as much as it is cultural heritage. But yeah, you'll be in a conversation with a German at a bar and they'll say, I'm not going to do the accent, but later. No, they'll tell you they have absolutely no knowledge of classical music as a general rule, but they really do prefer Bruno Walter's second movement of the Mahler 9 in comparing to Otto Klemperer's. But no, I don't know anything about classical. When it comes to audience, I think one thing we typically forget is that curiosity is sort of the main key of what brings people to things they don't know already. I don't think you can educate curiosity. Maybe you can. As an educator, I should probably know that. But yeah, I feel like if we foster curiosity more, might be enough than really expensive education programs. Boom.
Bang on 2 minutes. I realised that for this being, again, an audio format, I should have some sort of bong or beep noise or countdown ticking clock. Post-production, yes, we can fix it in the edit. It's perfect. Wonderful. So lots of really good thoughts there, but we would love to hear you, the audience's thoughts as well. It's time for voting. So, music education is vital to audience development, yes or no? I have a feeling this could be quite a close one. So we're currently, for those listening, around 57% yes, 44% no. This sounds like a swing state, maybe a bellwether, for going back to the politics analogy.
Can't see it, Dave.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I've just now forgotten that I also need to do tech. So they went out on the big screen for everyone to watch as well. See, you in the audience now know what it was like for an audio-only format. Wonderful. So we now have 60% yes, music education is vital to audience development, 42% no. 40% no.
I'd like to apologise to the 60% of the audience who I've just called lazy, misguided, and wrong.
Could you also tell us more about your position on the board of the ABRSM as well while you're...
To be very clear, music education is absolutely critical for a whole load of reasons, but my point is just that assuming it just as an audience development point is not.
All right, it's good to try and get you in trouble. Speaking of, because you were last, Chris, I'll try and get you in trouble again.
Bloody hell.
So, moving on to the next one, but I will give everyone a long introduction to this, just for some thinking time as well. Funding the arts prevents innovation. So, brace yourselves. We've all heard the phrase, necessity is the mother of invention. But until recently, we've had little genuine need to change or innovate, just so long as we get the same funding year over year of the same donors, patrons, foundations, and governments. But the problem is bigger than just lacking an incentive to change. In his book, Anti-Fragile, Things That Gain from Disorder, Nassim Nicholas Taleb argues that systems that are shielded from volatility become fragile. He says, if you shield the effects from a system, it will never learn, never improve, and eventually fail much more catastrophically. Funding has shielded us from the real world and has meant that our organizations, our working cultures, and our talent pool are not practiced or prepared to change or innovate. Now, not only does this affect the sustainability of those organizations and projects, but it also prevents others from succeeding. The continual support of the old and inefficient means that they continue to occupy the space and audience attention, hindering the opportunities for the new and the innovative. So, should we instead allow those that deserve to fail actually fail? To go back and echo Even Fisher's opening around dinosaurs, does funding the establishment just extend the lives of the dinosaurs, suppressing the opportunities for mammals to thrive and ultimately prevent necessary evolution? Chris.
It might sound a bit weird coming from me because I've made a career shitting on the industry, but I think we should stop shitting on the industry. To an extent, there was an old friend of my mother's who likes the traditional classical concert model. And I always think about him when we say we've got to innovate, we've got to do these things. And I thought, actually, there's a few people that do like the existing model. Now, when all the funding goes to those institutions that do that, that might become problematic. So in Germany, you can never complain about the amount of money given to arts in Germany. But it is fairly institution heavy. So I mean, the Berliner Philharmoniker is getting the lion's share of cash, and the free scene isn't. So whether there can be a better sort of sharing of the money in order to help that. I mean, if we started getting funding, would we be less innovative? Maybe, I don't know. But I think, yeah, it's hard to tell in the sense that the institutions being propped up, they have a responsibility to their existing audience who don't want innovation. That's fine that they don't want innovation. On the other hand, the projects we put together do need to be commercially viable, and that does help us. But does that make us innovative, or does that make us cheap? Inappropriate word for selling tickets to the lowest bidder. So, yes, probably. But then again, I'd vote for a wealth redistribution. I think rather than cutting the funding away, that would be the vote.
Wonderful, Nathaly.
We say the same in Spanish. La necesidad es la madre de la invención. And I think it's so true. When you don't have the resources, you have to invent anything because you need to survive. So you fix it, you change it, you think over again. But maybe the necessity is not the best starting place to create new things or the best things. You're just surviving. I've seen during the years heavily funded, especially orchestras or big institutions, they tend to be slower and heavier. Because if you have public funding, you want to keep the politicians happy and you don't want to change things. If you have private funding, you want to have your funder happy and you don't want to change things for them. So it's like it's a blessing and a curse at the same time, because you need to respond to these people and you cannot change things easily or in a fast way that maybe innovation sometimes needs. That being said, innovation requires funding and a lot of resources. The good innovation needs funds, needs time, needs people thinking about it, needs someone pushing and convincing even the team inside to change things. So you need funding to innovate. You cannot just innovate from a scarcity. So it's like finding the sweet spot, same thing. Of course, we don't want us to be underfunded to be more innovative. But finding that sweet spot, how we can provide some sustainability and at the same time have the open-minded, the growth mindset to also think and innovate, even if you're secure, not just when you reach the time of when we think we're going to disappear, we're going to innovate. And also, we don't need to innovate all the time. There is this obsession to be innovative all the time, and sometimes you just need to establish and do good things. And then in another round, you're going to innovate a little bit more.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah, so my point of view as a freelance artist based in Germany is that funding really helped me to think wide and broad, and I could come up with ideas, and I wasn't limited by the amount of money. So of course, yes, we apply for a certain amount of money, but you know what I mean. I could imagine a project that I was excited for, and then just give it a go, give it a try. So from my point of view, it's very important to have this possibility. I think the beautiful thing about Germany is that it really supports freedom, and it supports projects that are sometimes very wild and always very, very open. I come from Poland, so I know there was a time some years ago when unfortunately art sector was very conservative, and this is the danger when at the highest pyramid there are people who take away the freedom speech, yes, for artists, and this is when the problem starts, because then we have to adjust the projects that we apply for to a certain frame, and this is where arts basically dies in my eyes. So, yeah.
Thank you. Jamie.
So systems adapt and evolve to survive. And if that survival is guaranteed, then there's less of incentive to innovate. In some cases, you can argue, and I see it sometimes in the UK, you might also go beyond preventing innovation and saying funding can sometimes actively disencourage innovation. Often, part of the problem in the UK is if an organisation that has public funding works out a really good way of saving money, doing something more efficiently, that then might mean that the £1 million a year they save, a public funder then goes, oh, well, actually, you now don't need this public funding. We can actually lower your grant by £1 million. And so you end up with actually, there's no real point in investing time, investing resources in innovating because you don't really see the benefits of it. So the rapacious capitalist in me would say, yes, let's throw the whole sector on the free market. The good ones will survive, the bad ones will die, and you have a leaner, more efficient set of organisations in the cultural sector. The classical music sector is not about profit. It's not about sort of being the most efficient organisations. It's about an art form. And I think we should nuance ourselves and compare one to the other because actually, in terms of organisational innovation, there's a lot that the sector can be doing to be much more commercial and much more efficient. But artistic risks need security and need certainty. We have a sort of, the classical music sector is essentially based on a mad German princes saying, I love your music, I'll give you £10 million to go and write a huge opera. Like, that doesn't really work in a commercial environment many times. So I think having that nuance and thinking not just about is public funding good or is bad, it's what is public funding there to do. Music education, capital projects, working out ways which you can actually do things commercially, ways which you can't, and using funding. But we should never forget that some of the great innovations of our time, radar, the internet, GPS, actually came through public funding. So it's about how you fund and how cleverly you fund, not whether you fund or whether you don't fund.
Really good points, and I especially love that you were saying about the importance of nuance, because it means that you, the poor audience, don't get to have that luxury again as it goes into voting time as to whether funding the arts prevents innovation. But I love your points about radar, the internet, all these things that feel like they are big business innovations and actually they are public, but also the idea of individual freedom as well for artists and the ability to stimulate creativity and also how that connects to free speech as well, I thought was really powerful. So, votes are coming in. Good news for most of us, I think, that 91% are saying no, the funding the arts does not prevent innovation. We should probably then maybe show this to some funders and hopefully make a case study for getting some additional funds. And that also looks to have, looks to have stabilised as the numbers then continue to change, as we're now 87% no, which is really exciting. So before we move on to takeaways, we have some questions from the room I would like to just throw open and hear your thoughts. Good news, the horrible clock is no longer going to make an appearance. So, the questions. Should we relabel the term classical in 2026 within the global context, since historically it's European-centric music? Any volunteers? I should probably give some thinking time for these as well.
I've thought about this over the years and spoken to a lot of people, and the only issue is, like, yes, maybe, but there's no better option. So, I mean, Classical Next has said reshaping the future of art music. And for as many people that like that, there's another bunch of people who like, that makes you sound more like twats. And then world music also puts you off. So the alternatives aren't much better, I suppose. So, yeah, maybe.
Thank you for the extra work in the edit. Anyone else like to come in, or good answer?
It's a great answer. I'm just thinking maybe it will come naturally with the new generation, that classical music will, will mean something new, with time, naturally.
Wonderful, and I think a nice positive question to end on as well. Apart from the person who asked how I am today, I'm good, thank you for asking. Barring the concert hall and festivals, what was your most memorable brackets classical music experience?
Can I start? It was, oh God, I've got so many. Well, 10 years ago in Peckham. It was the multi-story orchestra. And they did Mozart's Jupiter. Oh, thank you. The multi-story orchestra. They did Mozart's Jupiter Symphony, and I got a ticket to it. It was down in Peckham. Turned up at 7 o'clock in the. It was a 7 o'clock start, so I turned up at 6:55, ready to take my seat for the start of the concert, and it was just sort of the bit of Franks, if you know. So it was a bar in a car park, and people just milling around. There wasn't like a start time. There were 5 zones. They were doing this thing called a living program note, where there were 5 different zones. And the first zone was a few musicians talking about the different instruments in the piece. And the second zone was musicians talking about the first movement and playing some themes from it. And the second zone, and each one had about a 5-minute spiel, and they just went round in circles. You could go and get a drink. You go and listen to the musicians talking about it. And it was really fun. And then at 8 o'clock, a bell went, and you went down a level, and they performed Mozart's Jupiter Symphony in the car park. It was an audience that looked like no classical music audience I've ever seen. It was also the most engaged audience in a classical music concert I think I've ever seen. I often go to concerts, and you see the audience sat there, and they've been to hundreds of concerts, but I'm not quite sure they really understand what's actually being played. And this audience they recognised things. You could see them nodding as a theme came back and pointing at the instruments they'd just been introduced to. And I found it incredibly, incredibly inspiring the way that ensemble had worked out how to really not just perform to an audience, but engage an audience and make an audience feel like they sort of understood. And again, lots of these people, it's sort of what informed my previous answer. Lots of the people at that concert were not musical at all. They had no musical education, they were not musically literate, but this ensemble had found a way to engage them. And I found it incredibly inspiring. And it's an experience that I'm not going to forget.
Beautiful, thank you. Anyone else want to share one of their memories?
Yeah, it was my personal experience. I was part of the first children youth orchestra in my city, in my country, in Medellin. And I remember we spent maybe 2 whole days playing Marcha Slava from Tchaikovsky, but in sectionals. So I never heard the other instruments part. I was in the first violin section, and if you're a musician, maybe you know that part. And we spent all the 2 days, and I was like, oh, this piece is horrible. I want to go home. They are torturing me. Why? I have to be here. And then we had the general rehearsal with the entire orchestra, with kids from all around the city. And then I heard the melody. We didn't have the melody, the first violin. It was a different section of the orchestra, and it was this powerful Tchaikovsky piece that is very recommended also for teenagers because of that. You engage so easily with that. And when I heard that, and I felt that connection, and I felt we were like 150. It was a completely room full of children. And we understood that was much bigger than our individual pieces, and we enjoyed the beauty and the strength of the music. After the rehearsal, we spent almost 1 hour just talking with our friends, how we felt, the power of that. We want to go to rehearsal the next day. So that's what I'm so obsessed all the time, talking about the active practice of music, the difference of being just sitting down as part of the audience and hear, or when you have this experience to try a little bit of making that music by yourself, and you feel that even the divine connection with something else.
Fantastic, thank you. Well, as we're now moving into the final stretch of the podcast, it is the wrap-up of the week of Classical Next, or the 3 days. It's felt like a week, certainly. So from everyone on the panel, I'd like to hear one takeaway that you've had from this conference, and equally for you in the audience, I would love you to share as well on Mentimeter, and it's great for you to have already got started behind us on the big screen, which is exciting. So, Chris, do you have a takeaway from Classical Next this year?
You can edit this out, right? In case.
Lots of bleeping then, lots of bleeping.
Okay. I have a contract to be here, and it says very specifically I'm not allowed to drink until 6 p.m. every night.
5 minutes.
And I realize it's actually really hard to do the last 2 hours sober when everyone else is having a good time. So my key takeaway next year is I'm not signing that contract, Aliena. But actually, no, the actual takeaway is like the brilliance of people. But this is the key takeaway every year, 4th year here, is people are genius. I do, and I've got 4 minutes left. The people, 100%. The conference is broad. It's too diverse in terms of topics to really sink your teeth into, but that's all just an excuse for us all to meet here, and the people are always phenomenal, so always glad to be back.
I liked when Maestro Fischer said, "We are the guardians of the truth." I felt that like a very encouraging and heavy thing to say, because we are in this moment when we don't trust institutions or each other or governments, or we don't know what's fake, we don't know what's real, but we play live, like this podcast. Like anything can happen, so we cannot lie to our audience. We are on stage. We play acoustic or electronic music, but it's happening in real time. So we have this real moment with our audiences. And I see it also like libraries or even museums. Like we share, we have the custody or something really precious. And I don't talk only about information, like we have the real or the truth in the information, but also we kept this side of humanity. We are guardians of beauty and the pursuit of beauty, and what makes us human. So I take that with me like a personal goal.
Wonderful, thank you.
I love being here, and I'm very inspired listening to other showcases. And I'm so glad that this research for new ways of presenting classical music is cherished and celebrated. And it gives a lot of energy for me to think what's next. And it's beautiful to connect with you all.
I think my takeaway has been so many ideas, and really inspiring and energizing ideas. Organizations that are doing things very interestedly, new innovations, new ways of doing something. But I think it's easy to have ideas. The really hard thing, the thing this sector has often been very bad at, is scaling them, making them happen, and sharing them. There have been so many things that I'm going to be taking back to organisations I'm involved with, saying, actually, there's ways we can do this more efficiently. There's ways, actually, you could be engaging audiences better in this. And I think it's been a really fantastic couple of days, but I'm really keen and really want to make sure that it's not just a case of people sat on panels and saying, oh, we think this, we think that, or you could do this, but actually, like, there's things that are actually happening. There's things that are actually being taken away. There's actual actions that people are doing, and we're not coming back again this time next year and having the same conversations. But we're actually able to come back and, oh, you're laughing at that. People are coming back next year and saying, I heard about this last year. We've gone and trialed this. This hasn't worked. It hasn't worked for this reason. We saw this last year. We went and piloted it. It's really worked really, really, really well. Because that's how industries, that's how sectors not just survive, it's how they grow, it's how they thrive, and it's how they succeed. So I leave feeling very energized about things.
Really exciting. Thank you so much. And for those listening back to the audio, we currently have the audience submitting their takeaways, which include now a debate, which was some of the giggling we've had halfway through. I think I'd just like to echo Chris's point that Classical Next is very much the people, which I've always really enjoyed, which means I can now have a beautiful segue into, we want to continue the conversations from the Classical Next. So please do follow the podcast, as it's a way that we want to continue to connect with you, the community. Seamless that was. And in addition, we also want to hear from you what you want to hear on the podcast, the topics being involved, the people, the organizations. If you have something interesting to share, please get in touch and we can find ways of featuring you and continue it as well. Email Aliena and not me as well. That would be better for my inbox. But I would like to thank everyone on the panel today, because it is a real whirlwind doing something like this. So huge thanks from me for everyone for being a part of it and being up for some nice provocative statements. Thank you to everyone in the audience as well. It's great to see you being so involved and your energy, and also coming last thing on a Friday when there were some drinks available earlier for free. And with almost 10 seconds on my watch till 6 o'clock, and Chris's shot glass in hand. 3, 2, 1. To Classical Next. To Classical Next. Thank you so much. We'll see you all later. I'd like to thank Chris, Jamie, Nathaly, and Susanne for joining me on the panel, the live audience for being so involved and so much fun during the session, and also thank you for listening. Although the Classical Next 2026 conference is over, we've still got lots for you. Over the coming weeks, we'll be showing more highlights and content from the week all over on Classical Next website, newsletter and socials. Now, some exciting news. Looking to the future, Classical Next 2027 is going to be in Katowice, Poland, from May 11th to the 14th next year. You can find out more about this all over on Classical Next website. You might have been inspired from listening or attending this year and want to be involved in next year's conference. It might be a conference session, showcase, project pitch, or mentoring session. The good news is you can be involved. Keep an eye out on the website, newsletter, and socials for when proposal submissions open up in the coming months. And finally, if you have any thoughts on today's episode, or if there's someone you think I should be talking to for the show going forwards, you can find Classical Next on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, or just get in touch through the website. And if you found the show useful, please do subscribe and share it with your colleagues. I'm David Taylor, and I'll see you next time.